You're listening to the Artidex podcast. I'm your host, Gina, the creator of the Artidex project. And for those of you who don't know, the Artidex is a evolving multimedia archive and philanthropic art initiative documenting artists, musicians, and cultural influences through Polaroid portraiture, long-form interviews, and collaborative storytelling while providing direct support and creative grants for artists. Today, I'm speaking with my good friend Joshua McKenney, the creator of Pidgin Doll, a fashion doll and visual universe encompassing multiple mediums of self expression, from illustration and sculpture to digital media and stop motion. And Joshua and I go way back,
Way back.
I think 12 years now
Yeah.
at this point, which is so crazy to think about how fast
Surreal.
it flies. So this conversation probably going to feel a little bit more like two old friends catching up as opposed to a very formal interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try to also go over topics that I know about, but other people might not know about, so that you can speak on them a little bit more. And also, this is one of my first interviews, so just like bear with me as I try to go through this. But thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It
I'm
means the world to me, and for having me in your beautiful home.
no,
This
I'm
is
so
so
excited.
incredible.
I'm so happy to see you again, Gene. Before we even begin, I just want to give a shout out to like what a supporter you are of artists, but also just me and my career. I think we'll probably talk about it a little bit, but you've introduced me to people and opportunities and projects through multiple phases of my evolution with Pidgin Doll, and um, I just really appreciate you, everything that you uh, have done for me personally, and then for just the arts in general. I think that's really amazing what you do.
You inspire me so much. I just like want to share you with the world. I think you're such a treasure and such a magical, gifted person
Oh,
that I will show you to anyone who will look at anything I'm showing them.
well,
So
thanks.
I appreciate you. Okay, so I wanted to start with kind of just like a general background. Like,
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about where you grew up, what you were like as a kid in general, but also like maybe particularly touch upon like creatively as a kid.
Sure. So yeah, I moved around a lot as a child. I was born in San Francisco, but my family moved to Michigan, which is where my parents are from, a few years of my early life, and then we moved to Florida, where I lived until I was 9, and then we moved to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, which is where I spent my teenage years, and then I moved to New York City uh, for college and stayed there until I moved to LA, which is where I live now. So I've been around the country.
Yeah, me too.
Uh, I was always a very creative child. My mother has a lot of artists in her family, so she recognized my interest in art very early on and always encouraged it, which I'm super grateful for. I was also raised very conservative with very strong gender roles. So from a very early age, I showed interest in gender nonconforming things. In particular, just femininity has always fascinated me. And while I was always allowed to draw whatever I wanted, and I was grateful for, I wasn't really allowed any other sort of like gender play. I wasn't allowed to experiment with dressing up, with
Like
dresses, or what
external self.
externally. Yeah, playing with dolls, feminine toys. We're all very discouraged for the most part. I mean, so every once in a while, like for example, like my mother gave me a set of like Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy dolls, and I didn't care about the Kermit doll. I only wanted Miss Piggy,
Just Miss Piggy.
and but I became so infatuated with Miss Piggy that they both went away. So like there were small moments in my life where maybe I had a
Mm.
doll, but for the most part they were very forbidden. And but I was allowed to draw, and so I've been sort of drawing and depicting women and femininity all of my life without any sort of knowing as to why I was doing it. People used to always ask me like, "Why do you only draw girls?" And I was like,
Right.
"I don't know, I just do." And it wasn't until I like became an adult and started really reflecting on it that I was like, "Oh, this is a I'm reflecting on ideas of gender
Mm-hmm.
and my relationship with femininity." And the only outlet I had was art, and it kind of became my life and my career because of that.
Yeah, and you're almost expressing something that wasn't allowed to be expressed, and that was like maybe the only channel through which you were able to actualize and express that part of who you were.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And again, I was completely unaware as to why I was doing it. It's just this love of beauty and glamour and femininity and gentleness that I needed to express somehow. And drawing was what was accessible to me, and also something that I loved doing. And yeah, so it just kind of like led me into my like teenage interests. I became interested in fashion and fashion magazines, and I would draw a lot of the pictures from fashion magazines, and that's how I kind of got into that whole world. Whereas before it had been like fairy tales and princesses and that sort of stuff. And
Was there a specific magazine you remember being particularly iconic for
oh yeah,
you?
the Harper's Bazaar was my big
Amazing.
magazine. Uh, I remember I was in the waiting room of like a dentist office or something, and they had Harper's Bazaar, and the woman working the front desk. I remember it very specifically that there's a photo spread with Kate Moss, and I was just like, who is
Iconic.
this beautiful woman? Oh my
Yeah.
god, this face! And I was just so hyper focused on it, and she would save me the magazines then. And so if they were like 3 or 4 months old, she's like, I saw that you really like these magazines. And this woman started giving them to me.
That's
And
amazing.
eventually I got my own subscription to Harper's Bazaar. This is in the 90s. So Harper's Bazaar is like an amazingly
Yes,
done
very
editorial.
pervasive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I remember too, like as I said, my mother was very conservative, and so she would see the magazine sometimes, but she's like, oh, there's like topless models sometimes in like a very fashion context,
Hmm.
but she's like, oh, this is not appropriate. So I had to like, I knew that the Harper's Bazaar would come at like the third week of the end of the month,
Did you hide them?
and yeah, so I had to like stock. I had stocked the mail slot because we had a mail slot, and so
Amazing.
I would sit there and wait for the Harper's Bazaar to come in and run it upstairs to my room before my mom saw it.
Where
Because if
did
she
you hide
saw,
them? Did you have a floorboard? Did you have a mattress? Did you have a pillow? Like, where did it?
I think I could just hide it in a bookshelf at that
I
point,
love
like
that.
just kind of just as long as she didn't see, like, because she'd be like, "What is this magazine with this beautiful woman on the
Hmm.
cover?" And then she'd look through it, but like she would treat it like it was like a dirty magazine, but
Hmm.
it's just like a fashion magazine from the '90s.
It's so funny. It's like cis straight men are like hiding like disgusting things, and
Yeah,
you're just like like so infatuated with just beauty and femininity, and like
yeah,
you have to hide that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
crazy. So you would say maybe drawing was kind of your first medium, and then you started to find your way like into fashion and clothing as like a secondary medium.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always explored different medium. Like drawing is definitely the most accessible because it's easy to find the
Hmm.
supplies and you don't need a lot of materials. I actually did do a few sculptures in high school. I would get like Sculpey or polymer clay, and I was always fascinated with the idea of making a marionette puppet. Um, I tried it a few times, but I didn't have a book about how to do it or anything. So it's kind of making, and I just didn't have the facilities to do it. But I remember for a long time that was like the ultimate thing that I wanted to make was a marionette puppet, and probably even on a deeper level, it was a doll. But
Hmm.
I knew that that would be like forbidden or off limits.
Wow.
Dolls had a real taboo quality for
Sure.
me, and so I didn't really like kind of accept that, like, okay, I like dolls until I was in my 20s.
So like puppet felt like almost like a safe gateway in a
Yeah,
way where it was like
exactly.
you're like I love dolls,
Hmm.
but I'm not fully like ready to did you feel like you were confronting that reality with yourself? Like were you grappling with it, or did you know it internally and you were at peace with it, but you felt like the environmental pressure to suppress that part of yourself?
I think I was interested in, I liked the idea of dolls, and I liked really old dolls. I think my concept of what a doll was mostly like a Barbie or an American Girl doll or things that I saw kids playing with. And I was always, especially as a young child, fascinated with Barbie dolls, but once I got a little older, I wanted something a little like meatier, something a little, they felt kind of like cheap, or
Substantial.
yeah,
Yeah.
like just a little more special, and they felt very mass produced to me. So I think that was another reason that I I didn't really come into understanding what a doll could be until I was older. I credit her all the time. There's a Canadian born Russian doll artist named Marina Bichkova who does these amazing porcelain dolls called Enchanted Doll, and it's really like the creme de la creme of art doll.
Wow.
And I found her work online and just became absolutely obsessed with her. Um, and her dolls are very expensive, and they're made for adults, and they're very
Hmm.
kind of melancholy. They're usually like fairy tale characters, but kind of like a like a somber, sad. And
Mm.
they have genitals, and they're not at all geared towards children.
Wow.
And it never occurred to me that a doll could be such like a an adult, sophisticated.
Or thought of as art, like we
Yeah,
were talking about
exactly.
before. It's art.
And as soon as I saw her dolls, I was just like, oh, I need to make dolls. This is everything that I love goes into this. And it just until I saw her work, it just had never occurred to me that a doll could be so elevated.
Do you feel like that was like the switch point where it like
Hmm.
clicked off in your head where you're like, oh wait, I love drawing, I love fashion, I love sculpture, I love women and femininity.
Hmm.
Dolls do accomplish or encompass all of those mediums that I love.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was becoming obsessed with her work. I also, through the internet, I started seeing pictures of like they were called like Asian ball jointed dolls at the time, but they're just ball jointed dolls, but they were popular in Asia.
Mhm.
And they were also like geared towards adults, and they're a little larger, and they have like sort of, they can have like goat legs or like weird wings or
Oh, that's
whatever,
fun.
horns. And I was like, oh, this is, there's this whole world, like a doll could just be anything. It doesn't have to be just this one type of like either a fashion doll or a
Right.
play or a baby doll or whatever. I just became fascinated with the idea of like making my own doll and what could that be. I'd sculpted enough to know that I had a knack for it,
Mhm.
um, but I hadn't really like developed the skill. So it took me a long time, even before we met, and I released like Pidgin as my
Right.
doll. There'd been about 4 or 5 years before that I'd been taking like classes at ceramics
Was this in
studios.
Parsons that this was happening?
This is after Parsons.
Okay.
I was working as an illustrator, and I just I knew I wanted to figure out how to make a doll, but I needed more skills. I didn't know about mold making. I didn't know enough about the materials, but I'd already finished school. So I actually did take a continuing ed class at the School of Visual Arts
Hmm.
and learned how to um, make molds in silicone and cast things in resin on a very like primitive level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just like slowly just teaching myself.
I love that. I also love that about you. I feel like you're such like a self-starter, and like if you have a goal in mind, or like you want to create something and there's something you're unfamiliar with, or there's some type of barrier, like you will teach yourself that thing so that you
Yeah,
can accomplish the expression, or MacGyver something. Like you're
yeah.
so like creative and determined and driven, and I admire that so much.
I think it's like the blessing of like having extreme ADHD, where like
Yes.
if I'm not interested,
Relate.
yeah, if I'm not interested in something, I won't be able to do it. I can't focus
Hmm.
on it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, don't even talk to me about it. But if I am interested in it, nothing will stop. Like I can hyper focus like nothing. Like,
Yeah. And I think we were also touching before on in a separate conversation, like how normal it is also for artists, probably more so artists that may have ADHD of some
hmm
kind, to like pick up a project, go all in for a second, and then like need to put it down for a
yeah,
minute and like switch to something else to
yeah.
almost like keep your attention stimulated in an interesting way.
Yeah, I think that was one of the good things about doll making as a focus, is because it's not just one skill.
Right.
There's a million skills that go into it. So although it's very easy to like pick up something, not be good at it and put it down, I could pick up like sculpting something and be like and like put it down for a little bit, but then like work on my sewing or work on like making a wig or make painting fit. There's all these things that go into it that you can switch your focus, so it doesn't feel
Right.
like you're just doing one
It
thing.
feels like multiple tasks even though it's the same
It's
medium.
coming to the same
Right.
conclusion. It is all these different skills that go into it, you know
I also would love for you to talk a little bit about the name pigeon, what the context was in which you came across the word and the meaning of the word and how you chose it.
Yeah. So the idea for like a character named Pigeon came to me when I was dating my boyfriend at the time, now husband. He was going to school in Boston, and I was on the Fanghua bus uh, driving up there, and I drew this picture of like a girl. I drew a lot on like transit, so on the subway, and
Mhm.
but I was always drawing in my spare time. And I drew this picture of a girl just kind of spacing out with a bird wing on her head on top of her hat. And I wrote pigeon, but spelled like the bird.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of like a cute name for a girl, and maybe maybe she lives in Brooklyn, and maybe she's like kind of
Yeah.
magical or whatever. And I brought the drawing to him, and we pinned it to his fridge at the time. And we were like, oh, what would a girl named Pigeon be like? And it's just kind of cute, and it sounds kind of like, I don't know, like a French girl or a
It,
pigeon or
it
something.
definitely
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
And we talked about it for a while, and like a lot of ideas that I have, I kind of forgot about it after a while. And cut to like 3 years later, I had made two dolls already, and I had my third doll. I wanted it to be based on like a European fashion doll. I tried to make a jointed mermaid doll with all these joints, and it was so complicated. And I tried to make her important. It was just this disaster. I learned a lot, but like the doll itself was just I didn't have the skill set to do it then. So it's like, okay, this time I want to make a very simple doll where it's just about her face. I want her to be as ethnically ambiguous as possible.
Mm.
Kind of feel a lot like Kate Moss,
I was
where
gonna say that.
yeah,
I was gonna say she reminds me of Kate Moss, actually.
the reason I loved Kate Moss as a model and as a teenager is because she just like every photo you saw of her, she looked a little bit different. And
Absolutely.
sometimes, like, I mean, I became familiar with her face, but the first like, you know, month or two of getting to know her as a model, I'm like, that's Kate Moss too. Oh my God. And I just love that
Yes.
idea of like
That
change.
chameleon
Yeah.
effect.
That changing
Yeah.
your face with makeup. I also loved Kevin Aquan, the
Of
makeup
course.
artist, and
Icon.
I
Yes.
would buy all his books at the bookstore. So I just love this idea of changing your face through makeup.
Hmm.
So I was like, I want to make a doll where that's the concept. Her face, I want her face to be as changeable as possible.
Wow.
Um, I want the body to be as simple as possible because I had these sort of European antique fashion dolls that are with a fabric body, porcelain limbs, and a porcelain head. So I was like, and I want Pidgin to feel like a modern girl that loves vintage things and old things. So having her be made of this sort of old fashioned construction of a doll, but also have modern proportions, and her sense of style is like a contemporary girl with like colored hair and whatever. It just felt appropriate. But I hadn't named her Pigeon yet. I was like that, but this is the vibe that I want her
Hmm.
to have.
Which you
And,
knocked out of the park, by the way.
oh,
Like
thanks. Yeah.
that's exactly when I have to explain her, like what she looks like to people. Like if I don't have a picture on me or like the phone service is bad, I have said, I'm like, she has this weird nostalgic vintage quality to her and yet also feels futuristic and universal.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's
So like
definitely what I
what
was
you
going
just
for.
described like
Yeah.
is exactly how she feels to
Yeah.
me.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. And Eric, my husband, he's like, "Oh, what about Pigeon as the name?" And I'm like, "Oh, that would actually be so perfect," because she was very much also inspired by like the girls that I knew in Brooklyn at the time,
Hmm.
like my friends like Stella
Yes.
and Elena, and
Absolutely. Icons,
yeah,
both of
yeah,
them.
these beautiful, these just really cool girls that like knew everything about fashion and everything about how things were made. And I'm like, okay, so Pigeon is her name, and then Eric is the one that suggested the spelling of it as opposed to pigeon like the bird. It's pigeon like the language. So pigeon spelled Pidgin, which is the way my doll is spelled. It means like if two people don't speak the same language but use another language to form their own way to communicate, it's called a pigeon language. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of like a hybrid,
It's like
or
music or math,
yeah, it's
but
a
also dolls
yeah,
beautifully.
yeah, and it just made sense on several levels because Pigeon the doll became and is like kind of how I express femininity, and also, and of course I wasn't expecting this at the time, but you know the she kind of came to life around the time like Instagram was first taking off, and I had started posting my doll photography, and very quickly I started to get a lot of fan art and people doing like recreating her makeup and
Yes.
recreating just doing drawings of her, recreating the fashion.
I have been inspired by her makeup 100%.
Yeah,
I do the little heart beauty mark and
oh
then like
yes,
tag you on
yeah,
it.
no, I mean you were there from the very beginning, and I'm sure we'll talk about that,
Yeah.
um but that was what was sort of interesting about it and why it became such an appropriate name for the doll, is because I could see like I would make all these different dolls or use the same doll and do all these different looks on it. And what people would recreate on themselves were the things that I was understanding were becoming like distinctive about her. So like the
Mm-hmm.
heart on the cheek, the freckles, the way she'd
Yes.
wear flowers in her hair. It became a language between me and like this Instagram audience, which I'd never had
Wow.
a social media audience before.
Right.
And seeing what was resonating with other people by my photography and this idea of this handmade doll that I was just making by myself in my basement in Brooklyn became a kind of language, and helped me form.
Like refine the branding
Yeah,
in a way.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
got to see like I get emotional when I talk about it. It's like it was just the most sincere way for people to interact with my art, and I just couldn't believe it was happening. And even now, when I look back through like hashtag Pigeon fan art, I mean, social media is such a
Yes.
different thing now
Amazing.
that people don't do post pictures like that anymore. But the fact
True.
that I was there for that and that I got so much of it, and just to see how all these different kinds of people and men and women and people, all these different sizes and
Mhm.
different ages, and all these people were doing pigeon fan art. And it was just the most amazing thing that
That
ever
was
happened
such
to
a
me.
great era, and I
Yeah.
miss it dearly.
Yeah,
That was such a beautiful time on the internet,
it
and I wish
was.
we could have maybe stopped it there.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
I
Gotta
know, I know.
gotta roll with the
Yeah,
punches.
at least, anytime that there's a loss of something, I would say, well, at least we had it when we did. It's a good way to sort of look at loss when things change, because
True.
it's always inevitable.
Should we talk about when we met, how we met,
Yes,
all of?
yeah. So when I remember you emailed me, and you were, I guess, managing. Were you
I was
manage?
specifically just doing like PR outreach.
Yeah, yeah. And
Because Melanie always had like a legitimate manager,
okay,
but she would say like, "Oh, this brand's really cool," and I'd be like, "Dude, they
Yeah.
probably want to work with you. You should just ask them. And I
Yeah.
was like, do you want me to just ask for you?
Yeah.
And so it was very just casual, like helping out a friend, but it was specifically for like collaborative
Yeah. We're
sort
talking
of
about
stuff.
Melanie Martinez, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Should have given that
Yeah.
context.
I remember you wrote me and you're like, oh, I'm working with Melanie Martinez, and she had just been on The Voice. I didn't have a TV at the time, so I hadn't seen it. But I looked her up, and I remember thinking, but like, I think the thing that you didn't know at the time is like, I had just launched the Pidgin Instagram account maybe like 4 months earlier.
Wow.
I was very early
I
in
did not.
very early in my doll journey. The whole idea behind the Instagram account is like, I want to try to give the idea that this doll exists and that there's this, like, just, if I can create the idea of a doll for people, I wonder how people will react to it,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of take myself out of it as the artist and just have the doll be the representation of the aesthetic. And when you wrote me, and especially when I like looked at Melanie and I looked at you, and I was like, these are exactly the kinds of people that like I was
It
hoping would
resonates.
resonate with. These are cool girls, like, and I'm really excited that, and there were a few other people that reached out to me really early on, as well. And that's kind of when I knew that, like, I'd been working as a freelance fashion and beauty illustrator,
Mm-hmm.
and I did well at that, but I felt like I kind of hit a ceiling, a wall where like there was only so far I could go with it, and especially because like print media was dying, the internet was taking over. I felt like I needed to pivot and do something else as an
Mm-hmm.
artist, and I was like, I think I'll stand out more as a doll artist or a doll maker than I will as an illustrator. And so having you reach out to me was this sort of like another sign from the universe that like this is the right direction. These are how you're going
Wow.
to like evolve and start working with the
That's so
kind of people.
crazy. Because,
Yeah,
like, I mean, yes, she fully seemed like fully formed, perceivable, established. Like, she just like fully existed. So you created that, I guess, and it was at the time it was an illusion,
yeah.
but
I
it
mean,
was it was very real.
what were you? I mean, this is a question that I've been wanting to ask you. Like, what when you reached out to me, did you know I was a like just a singular artist?
Yes,
And
I
did
did
you
know that.
and
Absolutely.
what were you expecting versus like what you actually came when you saw like my
Oh,
basement studio?
you were just so much more wonderful than I
Oh,
like ever could have dreamt of. No, truly, like foremost, a doll maker is like one of the most whimsical, incredible, and timeless like archetypal things. It's almost kind of similar to a doctor. Like I feel like it's like doctor, magician,
yeah,
shoemaker, doll maker,
yeah,
blacksmith. Like it has this like old
yeah,
feeling to
yeah,
it that's
yeah,
like
yeah.
timeless. Meeting you, I felt who you were as a person enriched her impact so much.
Oh, thanks.
And yeah, and I feel like you can, when you see you with her, I can feel how she's like in a way very much a reflection of you. You were just even more wonderful than I could have hoped for. You're just so cool and so talented, and it was just really, that was an awesome experience. I look back on that time extremely fondly. It was so formative for everyone involved. It
Hmm.
was like a very fast paced creative surge that everyone
Yeah.
was going through. It was Instagram, and
Yeah, it was
you,
so new. It was just like new way to connect to people and
yeah,
a new way to experience somebody without actually having to meet them.
right.
So you could get a sense of somebody. I mean, there was like MySpace existed and you could pick a profile, but Instagram, you could
Yeah.
really cleanly kind of show who you were as an
Mm-hmm.
artist,
Yeah.
and you got a sense of somebody really quickly, which is just felt so fresh and new at the time.
And I think we were discussing before, it was probably through dough, and you had made a pigeon that looked like dough or was like,
Well, Doe also was called Kate Moss a lot in
yes,
high school. She has it's that sort of broad, high cheekbones, wide
beautiful,
set eyes.
gorgeous.
And my friend Shen in New York came over to see my dolls once, and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh my God, your dolls look so much like my friend Doe. You guys should meet." And she sent Doe some pictures,
Yeah.
and Doe was like, "I need to meet him." And so Doe and I started talking, and then I think we became, was this before Pinterest? I guess it was probably around Pinterest still existed
Mm-hmm.
then. We became like Pinterest friends. So we were like, oh, we actually have really similar tastes and aesthetic. And she came to New York like a few months later, and she came over to see the dolls and posted about them. And that was, and Doe reposted the dolls, because it kind of looked like her a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Pigeon looks like Doe. But I'd made Pigeon before I met Doe,
Yeah,
like,
which is
but yeah,
crazy.
she posted photos of herself with the doll. And it was the first time because Doe had a really big Instagram audience. And so I got all these followers all of a sudden. And I think that's probably how you found me as well.
Yes, I think so.
Because all these
Mm-hmm.
cool people found Doe, like followed Doe because Doe is
Right.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that was really an amazing thing that she did for me. It was a great opportunity for people to like see my work. What was funny is like you messaged me, and I don't remember exactly what you asked, but we planned out a studio visit. Like, let's just meet and see what
I
happens.
feel like vaguely, and it could very well not be recollecting this,
Hmm.
but I think because I had seen Doe with Pidgin,
Hmm.
I realized like Melanie also had this very doll-like beauty.
Yes.
And so I think I might have messaged you along the lines of, can you make like a Pigeon Melanie?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I might have said that because I
Yeah.
think the doll thing was very much part of the creative inspiration at the time, was just like
Yes.
dolls in general. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I was like, this could be a really cool way to like connect that
Hmm.
aesthetic with an actual physical doll.
Yeah. We ended up. I think I did make a little like one of the necklaces,
Yes.
and I customized it to be
Mm-hmm.
Melanie, but I was still very much forming my idea about like what I wanted Pigeon to be as like a brand and an idea in people's
Mm-hmm.
heads. And I love the idea of like community coming together and expressing through
Yes.
this doll. And there was this comic book character from the 60s and 70s that I used to read the comics of at my grandmother's house. She had like an old box of them or whatever. Her name was Katie Keene, and she was like a fashion model, and she had little comic strips about her life, and she'd go on dates or whatever. It's something. It wasn't super progressive, but um, but one thing that was cool about her is that people would submit like young fans of her would submit fashion designs, and then the artist who created her would create paper dolls every issue of people's designs. So there were
Wow.
these wacky doodle like Katie Keene in space, and it'd be like this, like swirly hairdo with
Incredible.
stars in it or
Yes.
whatever. Just really whimsical designs, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. I loved that her fashions were generated by the audience, or
Mm-hmm.
not always, but like that they would sort of let people design
It's
for her.
collaborative.
It's collaborative, and I just loved that idea, and I wanted Pigeon to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had done a fashion design contest for the first Pigeon paper doll that I made, but we were all talking about makeup and our love for makeup,
Yes.
and I guess I must have brought it up, but I had sort of Katie Keene in mind. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we had people design a makeup look for Melanie,
Mm-hmm.
and then I make it on a Pigeon doll, and then we kind of have it all
Yes.
be. And so we did this like design contest where
Mm-hmm.
people submitted, and I did a little like template of like, it was sort of like a hybrid Melanie uh,
Almost like a
face
It
chart.
was a
Yeah,
Mac face
it was a
chart, but
face
of
chart.
Melanie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And people could submit their designs on it, so they were all like uniform on the same face.
Amazing.
And then we picked our favorite, and then you recreated the one that Melanie chose,
Yeah.
and I
It
made it.
was it one or two? Or was that a hybrid? It
I
was
think
just
it was
one?
one. It was just one. It had clouds,
Cloud
eyes,
eyes.
and like a moon
And like a,
here.
yeah, it was almost like a paisley moon. It was
Yes.
so it
Yeah.
was super
Yeah.
interesting.
I remember it was really hard to narrow down because there were a lot of really good
Right.
submissions. Um, but uh, but yeah, so that's what it ended up being, is this sort of like collab, and we did a little necklace version of it that the person won, and yeah, I don't know, it's just this
That
really
was
fun little
really
thing. But
cool.
it was, yeah, that's kind of how our like we like collaborated. But it was like, I don't think Melanie had recorded any music yet. It was,
Maybe not.
yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was just I don't think Dollhouse was out yet. It was just
Yeah, I don't
she had
think
just been
so.
on The Voice,
Hmm.
and
I think it
that's
was just
somehow what came to
beautifully
fruition.
cosmic timing, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, it
Um,
was so much fun.
we
And
were also working with a KT Ferris,
uh-huh.
who's a jewelry designer in Brooklyn, and she was doing like baby doll jewelry.
Oh,
So
cool.
that was also, it was just like this very like doll driven aesthetic, beautiful era. And I think we were like seeking that out in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
So I just think it's really cool because it seems like everyone was basically starting some venture
yeah,
in an interesting way. Like I mean, I didn't know, I feel like I just like made makeup up. Like I just invented it. Like I just
yeah,
like I didn't know. I didn't really get formal training.
right,
I just like learned by doing.
yeah,
So through those experiences, I learned makeup, and then like you were kind of just building Pigeon out. She was just starting music.
yeah.
KT was doing really. This is actually one of her rings from that long ago.
Oh my god,
Um,
so cute.
yeah. And so everyone was kind of just like starting up, and it was such like a really cool, beautiful time of a lot of creative growth, and it was
Yeah,
really infectious and really cool. She's definitely like a creative tour de force. That is
yes.
unarguable. She's very, very gifted. I know you have a lot of projects you cannot talk about. Do you have any that you can talk about, or like could you dream up like a future thing that I know we were talking about shoes a little bit.
Yeah.
What would be something you would love to see happen with her?
I mean, I can say very generally that I'm working on a big project right now that I've been working on for over a year now.
I'm so excited.
And I can't talk about it publicly, but it's kind of always just been my dream to make Pidgin more accessible as a doll. That's all. That's what. That's all I
That's the
can really
hint.
say
That's
about
the
that.
Easter egg. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you're getting.
That's been amazing to work on, and I feel like once that is a little further along, there's a lot of other places I want to take Pidgin Doll as well. I would love to do shoes. I'd love to get into cosmetics.
Oh my gosh,
I'd love
I
to get
would
into
collapse
storytelling.
if you did cosmetics. That
Yeah.
would be amazing.
There's a lot of places to go. She kind of exists in a doll form, but really like her true spirit is a muse, and this very specific aesthetic that she comes with, and it just seems to keep growing and expanding. And I feel so lucky to be able to kind of help like facilitate that.
What things about her do you feel like from the very beginning have remained kind of consistent? And then like what aspects of her do you feel like have changed a lot?
That's a good question. I mean, I think she's changed the most over the years, and especially the first 5 years, just because I got better as an artist and acquired more skills and became a better sculptor and learned about like casting in resin and then eventually 3D printing, which really did help the engineering of the doll. And like, you can sculpt symmetrically. And um, so learning to 3D print, I mean, learning to 3D print was its own journey. Like, I was already very far along with my doll making when I decided to teach myself 3D printing, or to sculpt digitally. I mean, which are two different things. There's 3D printing, which is
Yeah.
making the thing, and then learning to sculpt in a computer. And I knew that learning to sculpt in a computer would just change everything because you could be very precise about fixing things and whatever. So, I spent basically a month, and I was like, this is my job this month, is to learn this program. And it really changed everything. So that really leveled up the way Pidgin looked, learning to do that. And it's when like my friends started saying like, oh, your drawings of Pidgin are really starting to match up with the way she looks as a doll. She really just she had that like professional finish. But then, within that, she's evolved and changed over the years as I'm like just exploring my artistic expression and trying to see how far I can take the different doll sculpts and still have it feel and be Pidgin to me. So, I did like a chibi version where she's like, has a big head and a little body. And I did a version that's like a little curvier, and I did, I've done all these in a version that's a marionette and a version that's a mermaid, and like, just trying to see how far I can take the Pidgin Doll sculpt and have it still feel like a Pidgin Doll and be
within her world.
Yeah,
and
be
familiar.
identifiable as like Pidgin. Very much inspired by like, other artists' brands or other brands where they'll have like this version of Hello Kitty or this version of her, seeing how far you can sort of take your character. I think only if you can do it correctly, it only makes your IP stronger.
I wanted to also talk to you a little bit about, because you were talking, I don't know if it was in another interview that you did. It could have been Forbes. And you were kind of talking about like art as intellectual property and making art into branding. I think that's a kind of an important sort of subject, especially like right now.
It's kind of, I feel multiple ways about it, because I don't think you shouldn't have to think of art as branding, as an art. That's not really what art is. But I think that artists are constantly being taken advantage of in our society and by our culture, and I think it's set up to take advantage of artists. A lot of the way people consume art, it's usually some artist has been exploited to give you that. The only people that aren't exploited are the ones that know how to stick up for themselves and understand how to what intellectual property is, understand how important it is to keep your IP, to not give that away, because there's been so many opportunities in my career where people want me to give the IP of something I'm doing with Pidgin away to their company, and I will never do that, because it's really, really important to understand how crucial ownership is to maintaining your brand and for future projects or whatever. Because as soon as you sign that away, then that person owns it and they could come back later on, and like you never know where things are going to go. And that's why I think that it's important for artists to understand art has like a monetary value, and
especially with AI, really, because kind of also where I was thinking about like the importance of claiming it as like intellectual property and having this like reverence for it and knowing
Yeah.
how to protect it and protect yourself is, unfortunately, it's like become important. I was talking to another artist about this, but I hate that artists are now kind of forced to think about all of these things that are just not art related.
Yeah.
It kind of, I don't want to say it sucks the fun out of it, but it makes it a little bit more complex to navigate, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, for sure. No, it's definitely it's hard to like maintain faith and not feel disheartened when you see the things that people are doing with AI. And I mean, ultimately, like I never remember an AI image. I
No.
never remember them. I never see something. I can see it and be like, oh yeah, that's beautiful. That has like a
Wow.
1950s sort of filter on it, and I can see where it comes from, and it's undeniably pretty. I'll
That's
say
so
that, but
interesting.
I'll never remember it, and it never speaks to my soul in the way that real art does. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you see something real, and not all art does this to me, but when a piece of art really moves me,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing like it, and I don't think that's replicable.
Yeah.
But it's hard because a lot of the people that buy art, like it's just are not necessarily going with those sorts of instincts. It's like,
It's interesting you say that too. It's just not memorable because if you think about it, like AI is basically sampling from a bunch of like averages.
yeah,
And I think it almost like inherently makes it this sort of, I don't want to say invisible, but I mean, it's not, it doesn't have like the weight of
it doesn't have a
something.
perspective. It's
Yeah, it doesn't
like,
have a perspective. It
yeah,
doesn't have a personality or like human complexity behind it.
yeah, I think what's kind of interesting, and I think time will continue to tell, but I almost feel like this whole idea of AI art is almost teaching us like kind of what art is, like why humans respond to it and
Hmm.
why maybe they don't, to, because it's more than just imagery. And now that a beautiful image can exist without a real person behind it.
It takes the soul out of it a little bit. You know, it'd be a really interesting study is put up a gallery
Yeah,
and you had like AI art mixed with art made by humans.
yeah,
Could people walk around and tell, and how accurate would they be? I genuinely believe people might be able to tell and like feel it. I'm talking about not
yeah,
artists. I'm talking about like a conventional person who like maybe doesn't make art on their own. I
yeah,
think artists would pick it out immediately.
yeah.
Um, but I'm saying like someone like my mom who doesn't make art. I do still think there's some strange way that human made art is able to communicate some type of soul that can be like perceived even if it's subconsciously.
Sure.
So I would be that'd be a really interesting exhibit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think right now art is made with prompts. I think it has a certain look to it, so I feel like it's very easy to spot right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that will always be the case.
Yeah.
But it would be an interesting thing. But on the other hand, I don't even want to put AI art on a wall. Like just
True.
like
No, no,
it's
you're
just
so right. Like that's a fair
just
point.
let's just like,
But more just like just some kind of test of the gravity of people know.
yeah,
I think people know.
yeah,
It's the same way like you can hold something hand carved
hmm,
versus something that's machine made.
totally.
Like you can
You
feel
can
how much
feel it.
soul and effort and time like went into something and it feels like more precious and you
Yeah,
can like detect that even if something that's machine made is like objectively maybe more perfect or like
yeah,
the cutouts are more like it still doesn't feel as rich and valuable
yeah,
as something that somebody worked on.
yeah.
And I think we were also touching on a little bit how the core essence really fundamentally is you as a person, and just remaining true to yourself will always kind of embody this like genuine authenticity to how she feels and like everything that comes from her.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very personal expression, and I've evolved over the past decade, and so has she.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned more about myself as an artist. I've gotten older, just experienced more, and so the doll gets to sort of reflect that a little bit as
Absolutely.
well. So it's been a real interesting way to express myself as an artist, but in so many ways, just like the perfect medium for me.
And thank you so much for making her because she's a tremendous muse for so many people. So I'm so grateful that you ended up expressing yourself in this way because it's really resonated with a lot of people. And thank you for doing this podcast
My pleasure.
and bearing with me because this is my first time doing
Yeah,
one. So
it's a great
it's a
honor.
big learning curve and you've
Yeah.
been so gracious.
Well,
So
I'm so
thank you.
excited to see it all, and I wish you all the luck with Artidex, and it's going to be really exciting. I can't wait
Thank
to see all the
you.
different amazing artists you profile.
And I can't wait when we can talk about your future stuff.
Hmm.
We'll circle back.
We'll
Part
circle
two.
back. Part two.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. That's it.
Bye, everyone.